Hey everyone, welcome to day 5 of our Vivienne and Dylan sew-along. We're just about at the end here. Today we are working on our neck and armhole binding for Vivienne and then our neck bands for Dylan. And I know this is the step that sometimes trips people up, so we'll try and go slowly and hopefully make it a little less painful for everyone. So first, I like to start with my dress right side out. And I'm going to take my neck binding piece first, not the armholes. We are going to fold it in half. And then I'm just going to stitch the short ends together to create a loop. And after I've made that loop, I'm going to clip that seam with the right side to the wrong side of the center back of my dress. So you can see I have it clipped right side to wrong side. And then I'm going to take the front center of my neck binding and match it up to the front center of my dress neckline. And again, the wrong side of the dress to the right side of the binding. And then I'll clip my last 2 quarter points. And do keep in mind that the quarter point is not at the shoulder seam. I know sometimes it feels like it should be, but you can add more clips or pins there if you would like, but I'm just going to stick with those 4 quarter points. And now we are going to attach that binding piece. Remember to double check, make sure it's wrong side of dress touching the right side of the binding piece. And we're just going to attach that. After you've attached the binding initially, it should look like this. And now we are going to fold the top edge of the binding toward the middle. So it should look like that. And then fold it over again to cover up that edge, that serged edge, or if you used a sewing machine, that seam allowance. Like that. And then we're just going to continue that all around the neckline. So again, take the top edge, fold it down toward the middle of the binding, and then fold it over one more time. And this is one of the steps where I do use a lot of clips. I know a lot of times I only clip at the quarter points. But for this, I use a ton of clips just so my binding doesn't slip. Again, take the top edge, fold it toward the middle, and then fold it toward the We're going to Going to do that same thing all the way around. And it does make it a little bit more tedious, but I find the extra clips give me a nice finish. Looks a little bit cleaner than when I try to skimp on the clips. Now to finish your binding, you can use a long straight stitch on your sewing machine. You can use a stretch stitch. You can use a chain stitch on your cover stitch machine, or you could just do a regular 3-thread cover stitch. So this is what my neck binding looks like. And I'm going to hop over to my sewing machine. Okay, I've got my neck binding done, and you can see it's finished on both sides. So now our next step is to do the same process on both armholes. So first up, I'm going to create my loops. Remember to stitch with right sides together and stitch that short edge. And repeat for the other binding piece. And then just like with the neck binding, we're going to pin or clip right side of binding to the wrong side of your dress. So find the center point of your side panel. And that's where I like to clip my seam, my binding seam. Then go ahead and find the other 3 quarter points. And we'll attach that side. Before I start clipping, I'm actually going to attach the other arm binding. I'll do the same thing. Find the center of my side panel. Clip the arm binding seam to that center point. Find your other quarter points. I secretly like binding, even though it's a little bit tedious and it takes me a little bit longer. I like how it looks. Okay, we'll attach that binding. Just like we did with the neckline, now we're going to fold the binding and clip it in place. So I like to just finger press the seam allowance up, fold the top part of the binding down, and then fold it again so it covers up that seam allowance. Same thing, finger press it up, fold the top down toward the middle to meet it. So it looks like this from the front and that on the inside. Fold the top edge down and fold it again. And we'll do that all the way around both arm bindings, both armhole bindings. Then just like with the neck binding, we'll attach using a stretch stitch, using your cover stitch, or if you're using just a straight stitch, you need to make sure you lengthen it. If you just use a regular straight stitch without adding length, you will pop a stitch. I'm excited for my daughter to see this. She hasn't seen it since I started sewing it. I have one side all clipped, and I'll go ahead and clip the other side before I head over to the sewing machine. This is another point where consistent seam allowances are really important, because if they're kind of wonky or they're inconsistent, then your binding ends up being uneven. And it makes it look a little bit sloppy. So do be sure to take consistent seam allowances. So many clips. All right, I have both armholes clipped. I'm ready to hop over to my sewing machine and attach that binding with a lengthened stretch stitch, and I will be right back. Now that our arm binding and our neck binding are both finished, we are ready to set Vivienne to the side until tomorrow when we will tackle our hemming. By comparison, Dylan's going to feel much quicker since it's just a quick neck band. I like to do my neck bands with my shirts inside out. It'll work either way, but I just find it easier if the shirt's inside out. With right sides together, fold your neck band in half and stitch the short ends to create a loop. Then we're going to quarter the neckband and quarter the neckline. I know a lot of people like to use custom prints, and a lot of times those custom cotton lycra prints are not as easy to use on neckbands, so you may find that you need to give yourself a little bit of length instead of just what the neckband is calculated at. And after you clip it on, you can usually tell if it's going to be, I'll show you what I usually do to kind of gauge it. So before I start sewing, before I start attaching my neckband, I just very, very, very gently stretch. And you can see right there, I'm not going to have any bunching. Now, let's just pretend. Let's pretend I needed to fill this much space. You can see my neckband gets really skinny and there's a lot of fabric there. So that'll happen if your neckband is too short or if you are not quartering it evenly. Now I have to recorder it. But that's how I usually test it. If you gently stretch it and it's consistent all the way around the neckline and you don't have any puckering just when you're doing that, there's a very good chance that your neckband will be fine. You won't have any issues attaching it. It's just easier to do that and check and see if there's an issue before you start sewing than it is to get it sewn all the way around and then panic because your neckband stinks. Nobody likes to seam rip. Okay. So we're going to attach our neckband. You can turn it inside out or right side out to check your neckband. Make sure it's even all the way around. Make sure you don't have any bunching, puckering. I'll still probably give mine a good steam, and I may top stitch. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. If you would prefer not to top stitch, then you are all done with day 4 and you are ready for day 5. We'll see you tomorrow.